Okay, so I'm Menno van Zaan. I'm a professor in digital humanities at the South African Center for Digital Language Resources in South Africa. Oh, that's an interesting question. Um, yeah, that's actually a very good question. So one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to collect digital language resources, and we try to do that for at least all the official South African languages. So at the moment, that's 12. One is sign language. We still need to figure out exactly how we do that, because that has all different kinds of challenges, because it's not written, for example, it's not spoken. You need to get video. Um, just getting that data, collecting the data is already challenging. So for some languages, you can find decent amounts online. For some of it, you can't really find much. So it's trying to digitize, scan, OCR, that kind of data. Some of it might be on social media, but then you might not get access to it. So I think one of the things that we're struggling with is just the amounts of data. So we're not even talking about specific parts or fields or voices, but just getting data that's usable for something. So I think the whole question about voices or different kind of backgrounds or context, I think we're not even there yet. A very valid question, but I'm not sure we're there yet, unless you go specifically to an archive and try to digitize that. But for now, we're just collecting data as much as we can. So so I think the notion of ownership is very important. If you look at, for example, documents that have been collected in an archive, for example. So who owns the archive, or who owns the contents of the archive? Um, One thing that we are struggling with, or perhaps struggling is not the right word, but we have to be perhaps more careful of in the context of sign language. And I think it's valid for all languages, but I think for sign language it's just more visible. It almost feels like we'll come in and say, we're going to help you, and we're going to record what you're doing, and then we're doing things for you, whether you want it or not. And of course, that doesn't work. We need to understand what the community wants, what the community is looking for, what the community is willing to share, and what we need to build this collaboration. And I think we're quite aware of that in the sign language situation. We might not be so aware of that for the other languages. It feels more like, no, we want to collect it anyway because we might want to build a large language model, or we might want to build a machine translation system. And everybody's like, yeah, no, we want that. Without beforehand people asking, is this really what is needed, or what is wanted? But then again, if you don't do it, you just lose kind of access in the digital space. And it also limits what you can do. So I cannot read most of these languages. So information about the culture that's written in documents, for example, are just not accessible to me. And manual translation is just very expensive. So I think it's partially about accessibility. But I'm not sure if we've ever really asked ourselves, is this something we should be doing or not? So that's actually a very, very interesting question. But I think the practicalities kind of show that this is mostly useful. So that question never came up, I think. So I think one of the biggest challenges is the incompleteness. So if you start digitizing what was collected in the past, for example, that was already sampled in a particular way, we might not be able to digitize all of that. So what exactly do you collect, and who do you represent? Who's actually given that data? What is it that you're really describing? And I don't know. We don't know exactly why certain data was collected. And if we need to make a choice of what needs to be digitized, why do we digitize this and not something else? Um, and what kind of impact will that have? Um, I really have no idea. So there have already been, so choices have already been made before we knew. We can't easily change that. Um, so I think it's very kind of opportunistic. If we want to get access to data, we'll grab the data that we try to get access to the data that we can get access to. Um, so if data is not accessible in any way, then it's left out. So this is not a very structured approach. It's more like, let's see what is out there, what we can get. So it might be that I don't think that's the best way of doing it. But then again, if we're being really strict on what we want to get, then we might limit ourselves too much. But we do. So I know that there are projects where we do look more at a more balanced collection of data, language data, for example. So it's a lot of the collections that we have are based on government data because government website has the data. We can just scrape it. We can just use that. But it's of course a very specific genre with specific types of content, specific types of syntactic constructions. So if you build tools based on that and then apply them to literary text, the results are, let's say, not so good. So to balance that, you need to start collecting other kinds of data. So literary text, academic text, newspaper text, social media text, or text, not just text, but language. And I think that's needed. So that is kind of happening at the moment. But I think in general, if you look at the large languages like English, we're nowhere near that amount of data, and that simply has an effect on the things that the tools that we make or the applications that we can handle.